All right, welcome. When it comes to the cloud, building cool stuff is really only half the story. The other, arguably more important half, is making sure it's all locked down and secure. So today, we're going to talk about one of the most foundational pieces of that security puzzle, Identity and Access Management, or IAM, in Microsoft Azure. Let's get into it.
So think about it like this. Your cloud is basically a high-tech fortress. You've got all your valuable data and applications inside. And your team, well, they need to get in and do their jobs. But who gets a key? And maybe more importantly, who gets the master key that opens every single door versus a key that only opens one specific room? Getting this right, it's the difference between a secure, smooth project and a potential disaster waiting to happen.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, let's walk through a real-world story. It's honestly the best way to see how these sometimes abstract ideas actually play out.
All right, let's meet our team. We've got a really smart group of application developers. They are ready to go and they're excited to build the next big thing. They've got the skills, they're motivated, and they've got a very clear objective.
And what are they trying to do? Well, their mission is to launch a brand new web application. For the tech, they've decided to use Azure Kubernetes Service, or AKS. It's a super powerful platform for running applications in what are called containers. You can just think of them as these neat, little, self-contained packages for all their code. This choice is really important because it tells us what kind of stuff they're going to need access to in Azure.
And here is their three-step plan. Pretty straightforward, right? First, they've got to build the Kubernetes cluster. That's the engine for their application. Second, they need a database to actually hold all the user data. And third, they need to automate everything, setting up what's called a CI/CD pipeline so they can push out new code easily. Now, each one of these steps requires totally different permissions inside Azure.
But hold on, before they can even think about building anything, before one line of code is written, they have to get past the cloud's gatekeepers. And this is exactly where identity and access control comes roaring in. And this is where we hit two huge concepts that people often mix up. Authentication versus authorization. Let's break it down. Authentication is all about proving you are who you say you are. That's handled by Microsoft Entra ID. It's like showing your driver's license at the front desk of a building. But then there's authorization. That's what you're actually allowed to do once you're inside. This is handled by Azure Role-Based Access Control, or RBAC. Think of it like this. Your key card might let you in the front door, but it won't let you into the CEO's office. One proves who you are, the other decides what you can do.
Okay, so this is super important. We need to understand how this authorization part, Azure RBAC, actually works. The good news is it's all built around a really simple but incredibly powerful three-part structure.
It all starts with the who. In the Azure world, we call this a principal. Just think of it as anything or anyone that needs access. This could be Jane, the developer. It could be a group, like the entire dev team. Or, and this is key for automation, it could be a script or a pipeline which gets a special non-human identity called a service principal.
So we've got the who, next we need the what, and that's the role. The role is basically a job title. It's a prepackaged set of permissions that defines exactly what the principal is allowed to do. Can they just look at stuff but not touch? That's a reader. Can they create and manage almost everything? That's a contributor. Or do they need really specific powers, like being an AKS cluster admin? And finally, we've got the where. This is the scope, right? Because a key to the front door of the building won't get you into the super secret server room on the top floor. The scope defines exactly where these permissions apply. You could give someone permissions across your entire Azure subscription, or you could narrow it way down to just a single resource group holding your project stuff, or even get super granular and give access to just one specific database.
All right, let's put it all together. Let's see how our team uses this who, what, and where formula to get the job done. And we'll start with a classic mistake people make all the time.
Look, it's so tempting to take the easy way out, right? Just give every single developer the super powerful contributor role on everything. Problem solved. And for that automated deployment pipeline, just use Bob's account. He won't mind. It's fast, it's simple, and you've just left the front door of your fortress wide open. It is a huge security risk.
And that leads us to maybe the most important rule in all of cloud security, the principle of least privilege. This isn't about being mean or restrictive, it's about being smart. It just means you only give an identity, whether it's a person or a script, the absolute bare minimum permissions it needs to do its job, and not a single permission more. So how do we do it the right way?
Well, instead of giving permissions to each person one by one, you put all the developers into a group. This makes managing things a breeze. New person joins, pop them in the group. Someone leaves, yank them out. Done. And for all your automation, you create a dedicated service principal, that special non-human account, and you give it only the specific permissions it needs to deploy code, and nothing else.
And check this out. This table just lays it all out perfectly. This is the blueprint. The dev team group, that's the who, gets the reader role, the what, at the entire subscription scope, the where. This means they can see what's going on, but can't accidentally break things. Then, that CI/CD service principal gets to be an AKS contributor, but only inside the app's specific resource group. It's a perfect combination of who, what, and where. Clean, secure, and totally manageable.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you? How do you take this story and apply it to your own projects? How do you build your own rock-solid IAM blueprint?
Think of this as your personal checklist. First, always start with least privilege. It should be your mantra. Second, use groups for people, always. It'll save you so many headaches. Third, use service principles for all of your automation. Fourth, get specific with your scope. Be a surgeon, not a butcher. Be really careful with those God mode owner and contributor roles. And finally, don't just set it and forget it. Make a point to regularly review who has access to what. Things change.
So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. When you look at your own cloud setup, is it designed for long-term security and scalability? Or is it really just a bunch of short-term shortcuts you took for convenience? Because in the cloud, the keys to the kingdom are all digital, and you really want to know exactly who's holding them.